Good evening, everybody. Monday morning quarterback, episode 142. Glad to be back with you guys. It's been a minute. We're only doing these once a month or so now as we are trying to kind of mix up our social media content, free me up a little bit in the evenings to do some family time. So we're doing the lives once a month or so, and then weekly we're trying to put out our funny people behind the products that folks seem to like, as well as tech tips, product reviews, and stuff like that. So if there's anything in addition that you guys want to see, comment away. Let us know what you're wanting to see. We do have some things planned for the off season. We're going to do a whole series on our YouTube page on the building of a quarter midget from the ground up. So getting our chassis in, going through the powder coat, anodized process, kind of all of that stuff as we build Hudson's race cars for next year. So we'll have a whole series on that. And then we're also going to work on some more detailed series as we're getting more folks who are wanting to kind of rebuild their own shocks or dip their toes in the water with that. So we'll have some more interactive videos as far as that is concerned. And we're looking forward to getting out and seeing you guys here to close out the season. So this weekend I will be in California at Delta Speedway Friday and Saturday night, helping some micro customers, fine-tuning some setups for the Tulsa Shootout. Get back Sunday. Monday we hit the road for Millbridge, North Carolina. We'll be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then at the World Finals Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week as we continue to develop our wing sprint car package and then work with our micro customers, closing out the season here, getting ready for the Tulsa Shootout. So those are exciting things. And then before we know it, PRI will be here. So looks like that's going to happen and go off without a hitch. So we look forward to seeing everybody at PRI. We got a nice big booth this year, a lot of things planned, and we're going to have a big open house party at our shop on Friday night of the PRI show to let everybody come see where their shocks are built, check out our place, and talk with us more in a one-on-one setting. So we got all those good things coming up. Tonight we're going to talk about how to tune for rough track conditions. The do's and don'ts, and some of the pitfalls that we've found over the years, and this will be the case whether we're talking about dirt racing platform or pavement, asphalt racing. A lot of the things we're going to do and not do go across the board in those segments. So we'll talk about that tonight. As always, as we rock through the program, feel free to comment with your questions, whether it's pertaining to tonight's topic or anything racing-wise. If you want to let me know the score of the Saints game, you can do that too. I'm pretty disappointed. We're off to a slow start, and I don't want to buy Chance and Kevin lunch. I got dual bets going with the Washington folks. So if the Saints take the lead, let me know. And then we're going to do a couple contests. So we've had some folks that have said they've missed some of our contests that we've done. So tonight we'll ask a couple trivia questions, CSI and racing related. And if you can comment with the correct person or the correct answer, I should say, we'll get you some free merch. So we just uploaded a bunch of new stuff to the website, jackets, t-shirts, 3/4 t-shirts, hats, hoodies, what else? All sorts of good stuff we just got on the website for the fall. So without further ado, we're going to jump into tonight's topic. And again, that is going to be how we tune for a rough track condition. So the first thing I would like to bring up is when you look at the racetrack, if we're talking a racetrack that's got one hole or one rut or one inconsistency in the track, look at it as a percentage. So if we're saying 5 to 10% of the racetrack has an issue, we don't necessarily want to tune for that unless it's so bad that that's really affecting us around the rest of the racetrack. So when I say a rough racetrack, we're talking something that is 30, 40, 50% of the racetrack is rough, and we're needing to tune for that. Again, if there's just one area of the racetrack that's rough, and it's so rough that it is causing the car to be ill-handling or the driver to lose a bunch of time on his overall lap, then we would certainly look at tuning for that at that time. So a couple of generalities in regards to that is springs or torsion bars typically need to be adjusted, as well as potentially shock settings, the amount of gas pressure that's in your shock if you have a monotube. Generally speaking, a softer setup is going to go through a rough racetrack better. It's just going to be a smoother ride. It's not going to be as harsh. Now, you do reach a threshold there where you soften up and you get too soft, and now the car's traveling too much, or frame rails are bottoming out, and that would be an instance where now we're on the other side of the pendulum and when we're too soft. But generally speaking, if you go softer in spring rate with your springs and torsion bars, it's going to be smoother across a rough surface. Also, with that being said, typically more compression, especially on the high speed, is going to give a better ride, okay? So we don't necessarily want to go stiffer at low speed, which can make the ride firm or harsh. But at the high speed, when we're seeing extremely high velocities in the shock, if we can have more dampening control out there, it will help minimize. So for example, if there's a big hole getting into a turn and you go sailing off in there and the car bounces through that hole, you're going to see a big spike in shock velocity, okay? The shock velocity is going to get really high. If we have more dampening control at that high speed, now rather than bouncing through the whole corner, we're going to slow that down to maybe 1 or 2 bounces, okay? So more high-speed dampening. And I'll show you here a dyno graph. So here you will see the pink graph. Positive number would be compression. So this half of the graph here is compression. So you can see our low-speed dampening is identical. Your 0, 1, 2-inch is almost identical. 3-inch, we're darn near identical. But as we start to get to more higher speeds, the pink graph here has more dampening. And what we really like to see is for that to ramp up even more when we get out to the higher velocity. But that pink graph is going to offer more high-speed control than the green will on the compression side. Now, on the rebound side of the graph, a lot of times as we can take high-speed rebound out, it allows the tire to return to the track quicker and to smooth out that rough condition. So the contrary would be true down here on the rebound side. The green graph would be better for a rough condition than the pink graph. So very similar low speed, but the green starts to blow off quicker and has less high speed rebound. So get back to where the questions are. Okay, so you can see with those that shocks are very tunable, and we can do it a couple of different ways, right? It can be done with the shim stack when we're building the shock, or your shock tuner is building the shock, or it can be done with the adjusters, okay? So you don't necessarily have to have an XT shock where we can independently adjust high speed from low speed, but there is some adjustments you can do there. When they get into the off-road stuff, mountain bike racing, motocross stuff, a lot of times they will change the amount of volume in their gas chamber, right? So they'll reduce the volume. They'll put what they call a volume spacer in there, and that gives them a larger rising spring rate through displacement, which can help in rough track conditions. In our core markets, that's currently not being done. Typically, we'll go up on gas pressure to help smooth the car out in a rougher track condition. Now, again, you can reach a threshold where you get on the other side of that pendulum, so to speak. So, if you're running 20 PSI in your right rear and the track's rough, we'll say, hey, go up to 40, 50. If you're already at 50 and you try to go to 100, you're going to make that ride harsher because you're just making the shock that much stiffer. What we're trying to do is just increase the gas pressure a little bit, get a little bit more rising spring rate out of the shock, get the shock to react quicker, if that makes sense. So the quicker the shock can react, the better your car is going to get through rough track conditions. And so that's the case whether we're talking dirt or asphalt. So If anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask those. More than happy to answer your questions. And again, if it pertains to today's topic or any other topic, that's what we're here for. Facebook has like a whole new platform here, so I'm hoping you guys can comment. I didn't prevent you from commenting, but if somebody can comment, just type a comment and say hello. That way I know the comment section is working. I feel like every time I go Facebook Live, they've changed their whole platform. So while we're waiting for that first trivia question, I saw this online this weekend, and I thought it was very cool. It has a little bit of CSI history there, and only 2 drivers have won a USAC championship and an All-Star championship. Jeremy, okay, thank you, cool. I can see your guys' comments. So if for the first piece of CSI merch, who are the 2 drivers who've won a USAC championship and an All-Star championship? And a hint for one of them would be your All-Star champion this year is one of them. So Tyler Courtney is one of the 2 that has won a USAC championship and an All-Star. So Chris Bowie, good question. Smooth, slick track conditions. So in a smooth, slick track, typically we can decrease our low-speed compression dampening to get more feel, movement, more grip out of the car. And AJ Martin, first winner. All right, AJ, you're local, so you can come by and pick up your merch. I don't have to even ship it to you. Scott was correct too, but AJ's come across first. So Chris, smooth, slick track conditions, we're almost going to do the opposite. So we want a softer, low-speed compression, oftentimes with more low-speed rebound to keep the tires loaded more, especially in the rear. So when the track's smooth and slick, that's really easy, or definitely easier to get a hold of than a rough, slick track, because when it's smooth and slick, we can do a lot of things to tighten up the race car without upsetting the handling. When it's rough, you got to be careful tightening the car up too much to make grip, because it's going to get through the holes worse. Alex, high-speed compression again with the graph. Sure. Give me 1 second, and I will switch that over. I'm my own producer tonight, so. All right. So the pink graph, again, a positive number on any dyno graph is going to be compression. So top half of the graph here is compression. The pink graph versus the green graph. So we have force here, velocity down here, okay? So on the pink graph, you can see it's identical low-speed compression dampening all the way out to about 3 inches per second. It's still pretty similar, but then you'll see the pink graph keeps building, right? So it has more high-speed dampening. So to give you a real number, out here at 8 inches per second, it has 298 pounds, where the green one is 272. So a smaller difference, but it is a difference, right? So this was just for presentation to show you how a shot can have an identical low speed and different high speeds. That was the main reason for it. Typically, we would tune a little bit farther apart than that, so we would want that change to be a little bit more. So good question. Eric, going from a bank track to a flat track, any idea on what I should do to prep my son's quarter midget? First time running flat. Great question. So quarter midget racing, flat track to a bank track. First thing we're going to typically do is level out the ride heights. So oftentimes on a bank track, you will run tilt in the car, meaning the left side ride heights are lower than the right. So we'll flatten that out. So you'll start with your left side ride heights the same as your right side ride heights. We'll typically be softer on right side springs and stiffer on left side springs. We want to get that right side to roll over and bite and load the tires. So if you want exact specifics setup wise, you can email me and I'll give you a whole setup sheet for parking lot racing, which is what you'll experience in Vegas this weekend. I don't believe there's going to be a ton of cars there, so that'll probably be a lower grip situation. the whole event, because there's not going to be enough cars there to really lay rubber. Um, if you were going to like the Winter Nationals or the Brickyard when it was on pavement, Daytona, places where you get 300 cars or so, the track will lay a lot of rubber and it'll start to make a bunch of grip, and then you'll start to free your setup back up. But the big thing's going to be ride height, level it out, softer right side springs, stiffer left side springs, and probably 2-3% more cross weight than you would run on a bank track. But I'd be more than happy to send you a whole setup. If you just want to shoot me a DM, I can email that to you. Kyle, on a smooth, slick track for a dirt sprint car, are you typically softening the compression across the rear? And if so, would that compression be more of a change on the right rear? I'm going to answer that for both wing and non-wing, because I'm not sure exactly what you are, what kind of racing you're doing. So first, if you're non-wing and the track is smooth and slick, we are going to, if you have double adjustable rears, typically we're going to soften that right rear compression and increase the right rear rebound. So what that's going to do is the car will roll over on the right rear a little bit more, and then the rebound will help keep that load in that tire longer, so it'll keep it from rolling back. On the left rear, oftentimes we're going to come off of the rebound a little bit, not too much. The reason we're coming off of the rebound a little bit is we don't want to hold a bunch of dynamic tilt in the car. So if we had a bunch of rebound in it, it's going to sit down more than we want. So we'll take a little bit of rebound out, which you can lose some left rear drive when you do that, but our goal is to try to get even drive across the rear tires when the track is slick. So that's kind of how we would approach it for non-wing. For wing, it's kind of almost be a little bit, it's going to be a fair bit different. So on a wing, as the track slows down, we're losing downforce, so we don't have as much load pushing on the left rear tire as we did early in the night. So typically we're going to add left rear rebound to hold the same attitude in the car as when we had all that downforce pushing down on the left rear. Same thing, right rear, we would typically soften compression, add rebound, not nearly as aggressively as we would in a non-wing situation. The wing cars, the tires are different, and if the car gets late on the right rear, you're not going to make any speed in a wing car. So we are very careful to not soften it too much. 10 years ago, you would have softened that right rear compression down into probably the 60s at 3-inch, and your 3-inch rebound is going to be 140, more of like your 4.6 in like an old school number. They don't do that today. They don't get that soft on right rear compression or that stiff on right rear rebound in your wing sprint car application. Saints still losing. So I bet lunch with Chance today. He's obviously a Washington guy, Seahawks fan. I almost had to twist his arm into it because they didn't have Russell Wilson. So then I text his dad, Kevin, who are partners with in Pit Logic, and he jumped right away to bet me lunch, but he said, I think I'm going to end up buying you lunch. And that's typically the way it goes. The Saints win the games they shouldn't and lose the games. Golly, that's frustrating. But that's the post-Drew Brees era. We're going to have to live with it. So hopefully we'll draft a quarterback this year. Anybody else have any questions? We are here to answer them. And I'll do one more trivia question to give away some more merch. How many USAC national championships, not counting quarter midget sprint silver crown, how many USAC national championships have we won on CSI Shock since we started in 2009? So how many USAC championships? And we will give you some goodies if you know. 7-3. Woo! We got a field goal. All right. How would you adjust a quarter midget for a rough dirt track if we just have one standard shock package that's set up for smoother track conditions? So that's a little bit. That's a tough question, Mark. So softer springs on the right side will help you get through the holes better. And if you've really, quarter midget shocks are non-adjustable. So if you only have one shock package, there's not much you can do there. Up on air pressure, on your right rear air pressure will help a little bit since you don't have that. So those are a couple things I would try for sure. Chad, what actually does Brad do here? Brad Coleman. Well, Brad had the day off today because he works 410s and we needed him here on Friday to count inventory because I'm going to California to work with customers. Brad does a little bit of everything here, mainly tech support, answering phones, sales, stuff like that. But you know, he's Brad, so he's he's a big asset for a lot of our customers. But we like to give him a hard time because how much fun would it be if we weren't giving him a hard time? So we have guesses of 11 and 8. Neither of those are accurate, but they are close. Junior Sprint, is there a benefit to having adjustable fronts as well as the rears? So if you ask anybody who's ever dealt with me, I am a horrible salesman and I never upsell. I just give you the honest truth of what I would run on my race car. And I run on my race car what I would run if I was paying full tilt for this stuff, right? So don't waste money and don't BS it. So I would run adjustable fronts if you race a variety of track conditions, right? So if you're running a couple different places that go from tacky to slick, there's definitely a gain to be had there by adjusting rebound. If you race at a track that is pretty similar all the time, you can certainly get away with non-adjustable fronts. We had a customer win the shootout 3 years ago with non-adjustable fronts. So it can happen. If you're running a variety of tracks, again, with a variety of track conditions, I would recommend them, right? I would recommend them. Dalton, when the track goes from heavy to slick but still has a slight curb, let's say a quarter or 3/8 for a wing car, how much do you adjust all 4 corners? So I do like to adjust all 4 corners typically when I'm making an adjustment, but I like to make a very small change on all 4 corners rather than a big change on one corner, especially if the balance of my race car is good. So if the balance is really good, a small change on all 4 corners will almost always benefit you more than making a big change on one corner. So if I'm going to say percentage-wise, I'm going to make between a 15 and 20% change. That makes sense. How are bump springs and bump rubbers affected by a rough racetrack? It makes it very challenging, Alex, because you're going to see different displacements in different parts of the track. We typically steer away from our progressive kit or progressive spring kit if the track is really rough, because the benefits you're going to gain don't outweigh the negatives when it's really rough. It's kind of risk versus reward in that aspect. So 10, 7, 7, 10, 13. Brody Roa with 9. Brody, you're the winner. You said you were sending some shocks today. I'll send you some goodies back. It was 2 Silver Crown, 5 Sprint car, and 2 Midget since we started in 2009. So feel extremely fortunate to be a part of that many USAC wins and for all the great teams and drivers that have believed in us. So thank you guys for guessing. Chad. Yep, we love having Brad around and we love busting his chops. So we have a thing here, Chad, that if you win a race, whether you're a driver, a crew guy, a car owner, you have to bring in donuts on Monday, right? So sometimes in the summer it gets to be a little much and we have to take a break or whatever. If everybody at Tiers races, there could be a Monday where like 4 of us won, so we'll kind of coordinate. So Brad goes and wins one of the biggest micro races of the year as the car owner. So I know he got a bit of that $10,000 or $12,000, whatever the hustle paid. We've yet to get our donuts. I think by now he needs to bring us in Chick-fil-A or something better than donuts because he's gypped us. You got a guy that's like a mud scraper on a car who works here, didn't get any of the winnings, and they bring in donuts. So shame on Brad for not bringing us donuts. So AJ Martin's a winner. Brody Rowe is a winner. AJ can pick his goodies up. Brody, I'll throw yours in with your shocks. Definitely check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed there. All previous 141 episodes are there, as well as a bunch of other goodies. And we are going to push some more tech videos to the YouTube platform this winter as we get those filmed. So We certainly appreciate everybody tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic week. Hope to see you at a racetrack here sooner rather than later. And who dat? Go Saints. Let's get a win tonight. Take care, guys.